Good evening and welcome to Mining the Riches of the Parshah. Tonight is Thursday night, June 5th, 2025. I am thrilled to be with you. And before we begin, Aviva has asked to share something. So Aviva, if you would unmute yourself, and you're on center stage. I just want to say I have not heard what Aviva is going to do, so it's going to be a surprise. Aviva, you're still muted. You have to unmute. Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. I have to. Okay, there we go. Now try. Now try to unmute. Aviva.
Okay.
There you go. Okay. There's
Okay.
Aviva. Please, everyone, listen to Aviva.
Okay. I would like to start this meeting by dedicating a song to Rabbi Whitman, scholar par excellence, whom we missed very much while he was busy looking after other people and not looking after us. But here goes the song. Though April showers may come your way, they bring the flowers that bloom in May. And when it's raining, have no regrets. It isn't raining rain, you know, it's raining violets. And when you see clouds upon the hills, you will see crowds of daffodils. So keep on looking for the bluebird and listening for its song. Whenever April showers come along, whenever April showers come along.
Brava, brava. Thank you very much, Aviva. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.
My pleasure.
With that introduction, let's begin. When we do a conversion, someone converts to Judaism, there is a certain standard question that we ask. And we, the Dayanim, the judges, the three rabbis, we have to have confidence in the sincerity of the answer. I mean, a person could just answer the question, yes, but we have to have confidence that they really mean it. And the question that we ask relates to the most important requirement of conversion to Judaism, which is Kabbalat Mitzvot. A person accepts upon themselves the responsibility to keep all of the mitzvot to the best of their ability for the rest of their life. Now, in our conversion program and other Orthodox conversion programs, we are looking for and we expect full religious observance for the rest of this person's life. And we must be convinced that in our judgment, they will live up to it. And it is a very, very difficult standard. So one of the questions in this context that we ask is quite a curious question. We say to the person, is there any mitzvah that you do not accept? If the answer is yes, then there's no conversion. Because Kabbalat Mitzvot must be full acceptance of every mitzvah. No exceptions, no exclusions. And what's interesting is, even if that exclusion is not practically applicable. For example, if someone were to say to us, I don't accept that it was a mitzvah from God that the Jewish people should be camped in the desert the way the Torah describes in last week's Torah portion by Midbar. I mean, it's not practically relevant because it's over. It's not happening now. Or let's say a person says, let's say it's a woman. A woman says, I do not commit that if I was a man, I would wear tefillin every day. I don't accept that that's a mitzvah. So if something like that were to happen, we would go home. No conversion. Even if the person commits to do everything that they are required to do, and we believe that they're going to do what they are required to do, why should this be a reason not to proceed with a conversion? And the answer is because the difference between accepting all the commandments and accepting all but one is a profound difference, even if there's no practical consequence. Because accepting all means I serve God. If I accept all but one, what that means is I serve myself. And it just so happens that I almost always agree with God. Not always, but I'm serving myself. And that is a huge difference. And Rabbi Moshe Lichtenstein sees this truth in this week's Torah portion, the Torah portion of Nasso. So let's start like this. The tribe of Levi, one of the 12 tribes of Israel, the tribe of Levi was comprised of three families, three groups, corresponding to the three sons of Levi, Yaakov's son, Gershon, Kahas, and Merari. Those were Levi's three sons, and the tribe of Levi was divided among these three. Now, in last week's Torah portion, the Parshah Bamidbar, we learned that God says to Moshe, do a census of the family of Kahas. Take a census of how many Leviim there are in the family of Kahas. That was in last week's Torah portion. In this week's Torah portion, Nasso, it begins, take a census of the number of Leviim, who are in the family of Gershon. And then it says, take a census, Moshe, of the number of Leviim that are in the family of Merari. So the question is, if Levi has three sons, and the Levites are divided into these three groups, and you're going to take a census of all three, why not put them all in the same Torah portion? Why put one family in last week's Torah portion and two families in this week's Torah portion? It just seems like it's not the logical way to divide the Torah portions. So Rabbi Moshe Lichtenstein says as follows. The Torah tells us that the group of Leviim of each of these families had their own specific job. For example, the family of Kahas had the job that they would carry on their shoulders the holy vessels of the Mishkan when the Jewish people traveled from place to place. The family of Gershon had the job that when they traveled from place to place, they would carry the curtains and the poles, and they had special wagons to transport the poles and the curtains. Listen to the words of the Rambam. The Rambam says, Zera Levi, Kulo Muvdal Lavodas HaMikdash. The entire tribe of Levi is set aside to serve in the sanctuary. First in the Mishkan, later in the Beit HaMikdash. And it is a mitzvah for every Levi, Lios Halavim Penuyim Umuchanim Lavodas HaMikdash. Hello, Mo, welcome. For every hello, welcome, good to have you. For every Levi to be free and ready to serve, bein ratzu, bein lo ratzu. Whether it's a job they want to do or it's a job they do not want to do. They don't get the choice. They don't get to choose, oh, I want to be the one to carry this. No, I want to be the one to carry this. No, you're given a job and you're required to do it. Now listen to the words of the Rambam. Uben Levi shekibla alav called mitzvahs levia. Let's say you have a Levite, and he accepts upon himself that he will observe all of the laws of being a Levi, chutz midavar echad, except for one, whatever it is. Ein makabla naso. We don't allow him to serve as a Levi. Ad sheyakabel es kula, until he accepts all. So, in this idea of being a Levi, we have this idea that there were three groups. Each group had their own job, and you were not allowed to do the job that you were not given. Now, later, when the Beis HaMikdash was built, the Leviim had different jobs. They would sing, they would open the doors. But again, each group had their own job. Why shouldn't a person be able to have a choice? I mean, if I say, I'd rather carry something on my shoulders than carry something in a wagon, or I'd rather sing than open the doors, I'm better at singing, or I don't want to sing, I have a terrible voice, why do I have to sing? The answer is, says Reb Lichtenstein, according to the words of the Rambam, Mitzvah saseh, it is a positive mitzvah, liyas haLeviyim penuyim u'muchanim la'avodas hamikdash. They have to be free and ready to serve the sanctuary, bein ratzu, bein lo ratzu, whether they want to or they don't want to. You don't get to choose. Your obligation is to serve. What your job is, you do the job that you're given. Because you're serving Hashem. You're not serving yourself. When you choose the job that you do, you're serving yourself, and you're saying, I happen to like this mitzvah, so I'm going to do it. That's not serving God. Serving God is you do what God tells you to do. The Rav, Rabbi Yosef Soloveitchik, of blessed memory, says as follows, that the appointment of a Levi to any particular service is dependent and conditional upon his readiness to devote himself to all the Levite commandments. If he specifically wants, for example, to be appointed as a singer and not as a gatekeeper, then he is not appointed to what he prefers to do, because then he would be serving himself, not serving God. Serving God means I do what God commands, not what I think is the right thing. And that's why Reb Lichtenstein explains, that's why the families are divided into two portions. One in last week's Torah portion and two in this week's Torah portion, to emphasize each group is separate. And if you're in that group, you have to do that job, and you don't get to choose the job of another group. Then Rav Lichtenstein applies this to a very current situation that is going on now, and also a situation that applies to every one of us. Rav Lichtenstein says, this is true about other kinds of labor. It's true about becoming Jewish. It's true about being a Levi. And it's true about other kinds of service. For example, in Israel, when a person reaches a certain age, they have to join the army. If a person joins the army in Israel, I mean, it's true anywhere, but let's just take Israel because that's what we're talking about. Person joins the army and a person says, I am joining the IDF on the condition that I be accepted to Sayeret Matkal. Sayeret Matkal is the most elite special forces. I want to be Sayeret Matkal. That's what I want. If I can't have that, I'm not coming. the army would not accept him. Or this is another example that now Rav Lichtenstein gives this example, so I want to be clear. I happen to know several people that are in this position, so I don't want to sound like I'm, God forbid, casting aspersions on them. So I'm quoting what Rav Lichtenstein says. Rav Lichtenstein says, some people come and they say, okay, I'll join the army, but I want to be in intelligence. I want to be in intelligence. Now, again, I have to stop. I know a number of people who have been in or are in intelligence, the ADF. They're wonderful. They're the best. Fantastic people. But I'm just sharing what Rav Lichtenstein said. Rav Lichtenstein says, so he'll ask them, why do you want to be in intelligence? Why do you insist that you're only going into the army if you're going to be in intelligence? So he says, the person will say, I'm suited for it. So Rav Lichtenstein says, he thinks to himself, this person thinks that they're going to get a job in the army and they're going to be far behind the front lines. They're going to be in an air-conditioned office. They're going to be looking at a computer screen while other people are on the front lines. It's not right. You don't get to decide. Again, I have to say, I know people in intelligence, and they also are on the front line, and they are as willing to do anything. So I don't, God forbid, want to cast aspersions on anyone in intelligence. They have my highest admiration. Highest. They're heroes. But the idea that a person should come and say, I'll be in the army, but I insist it be what I want. He writes, this phenomenon is caused by one single thing, the search for what suits me or what is convenient for me. But they don't understand that what is required when you join the IDF is to serve the state of Israel, is to serve Am Yisrael, the Jewish people. And whatever the state asks of them, whatever the army asks of them, that's what they have to do. And if the army says to you, we need you to cook food, or we need you to sweep the floors, or we need you to go into Gaza, that's what you have to do. You don't get to decide what to do. And you have to take your job that you're given with and do it with the same enthusiasm as if it was whatever you thought you wanted to do, because you're not serving yourself. You're serving the country. You're serving the Jewish people. The fact that a person is idealistic and has a sense of mission does not express itself only in the fact that he devotes free time to Torah study. He does mitzvahs. Okay, that's very, very important. That's very good. But it manifests itself in his readiness or her readiness to stand at the disposal of Am Yisrael in whatever way they are needed, and not necessarily in the way that will help advance them. This consciousness is well anchored in the Rambam's formulation. The Leviim have to be available and ready to do what they're asked, what they're told. And it applies in our lives also, very often in life. We are needed for something different than what we prepared for. We are needed for something different than what we thought we were going to do. And a person has to have this sense that I'm not serving myself, I'm serving God. That's what is needed to serve as a Levi. That is what is needed to become a convert to Judaism. And we've discussed this many times. That is what the entire Jewish people did at Mount Sinai that we celebrated last week on Shavuos, when we said, Nasso v'nishma. Nasso v'nishma means we're going to do whatever you say, and then we're going to hear what it is. But we commit ourselves to serving you. And that means what you tell us to do, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do it with enthusiasm, even if it's not what we thought we wanted to do. And as we've discussed many times before, that event at Sinai of saying Nasso v'nishma sets the pattern for conversion even today. And that is what God expects from every one of us, to serve God and not to serve ourselves. And that means to serve God in whatever way God commands. There are two, yes, Michael. You can ask. If you have a certain aptitude, you can ask. You can say it. But if the commander says, no, we need you to do this, you have to do that. All right. There are two passages in this week's Torah portion, the Parshah of Nasso. And each of these passages presents the details of a mitzvah. And both of these mitzvahs, both of these commandments, I'm referring to the mitzvah, the subject of sota, and the subject of nazir. I'm going to describe both of them. Both of these mitzvahs, both of these subjects are difficult. They are complicated. They are somewhat dark. And they take us uncomfortably close to the private lives of another person. Sota involves a ceremony that would take place in the Beis HaMikdash, in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, when a marriage is suffering from doubts and accusations of infidelity. There was a ceremony that would take place in the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash to clarify what the status of this marriage is. It's complicated. It's difficult to understand. It's hard to understand why this ceremony, which seems to be so intimate, would take place in a public place, in the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash. That's one subject. The next passage relates to Nazir. Nazir is a person who takes an oath to abstain from otherwise permitted activities. Now, I want to just be clear. Both of these subjects deserve a full treatment of study and analysis to understand them, including why either of these subjects should be a public matter and not a private matter. I have shared this with you in the past. We'll return to it again in the future with God's help. But tonight, I just want to focus on what appears to be a superficial insight. And that is the question, what is the connection between these two subjects, these two mitzvahs? Why are these two mitzvahs, these two passages, placed in sequence in our Torah portion? So I want to share with you the insight of a great scholar, someone I consider one of my teachers, Rabbi Yochanan Zweig. He says, these two subjects, they may be very, very far from our lives. The idea of one spouse accusing the other of infidelity, of course, it's not so rare, unfortunately. But let's say in a normal course of events, it has nothing to do with my life. The idea of a nazir, somebody who takes upon himself to prohibit to himself drinking wine or cutting their hair or coming into contact with a dead body. It's strange. I'm not going to do that. It has no connection to me. Even though both of these subjects may be very far from our lives, there is a lesson that emanates from them that is relevant to every single one of them. And it's based on an insight of the Talmud. The Talmud explains the word nazir. What does the word nazir mean? So it's based on the verse, miyayin v'shecher yazir. From wine and alcohol, he will abstain. He will separate himself. And the Talmud says, one who sees this tragic ceremony of a sota, the accusations between husband and wife, the recriminations, the breakdown of shalom bayis, the breakdown of a family, one who sees that ceremony, that person, a stranger, complete stranger, but a person sees that, they should at least temporarily refrain from alcohol. Why? Because a person should think to themselves, if there was immorality in this marriage, I'm a stranger. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. But if there was some kind of immorality, then maybe I might come to commit something that is immoral. Maybe the same thing, maybe something different. And alcohol is something that removes a person's inhibitions. It weakens a person's inhibitions. So the Torah says, if I see something like this, I should abstain from alcohol for at least 30 days. That's the period, the normal period for a Nazir. Abstain from alcohol for at least 30 days. Let's say somebody does something terrible. You don't know them, but it's public. They did something that creates a scandal. They did something that is immoral. They committed a crime. They did something really terrible. I'm a bystander. I've got nothing to do with it. I'm a stranger. But I am required to say to myself the following. Michael Whitman, don't think it's so far-fetched. Don't think that it has no relationship to you, Michael Whitman. Don't think that you, Michael Whitman, could never make a mistake like that. Thank God I have not made such a mistake. But a person should never think to themselves, oh, it's not related to me. It's not applicable to me. I would never do something scandalous, something terrible, a crime. I would never do that. Don't be so sure of yourself. And therefore, I, as this bystander who see or hear of this scandal, I am required to do something myself, to take a step to make sure that I don't get caught up in some other scandal. You know, Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year. In the morning on Yom Kippur, we have a Torah reading. And the Torah reading in the morning of Yom Kippur is about the Yom Kippur service, the service of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, and he goes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. It's the only time of the year anyone enters the Holy of Holies. It's just so spiritual and holy. And then we come to the afternoon. In the afternoon, we also have a Torah reading. The Torah reading for Yom Kippur afternoon, the holiest day of the year. And you would think it's the day that we are, hopefully, the holiest of the whole year. On Yom Kippur afternoon, we read the Torah and it says, don't commit incest. Don't have relations with an animal. Ribono shel olam. It's Yom Kippur. I may not be perfect, but you have to tell me don't commit incest? That's the message I have to hear on Yom Kippur in the afternoon? That's exactly the message. You think you're so holy, you think it's Yom Kippur, you think you're so far removed. Don't be so cocky. greater than you have succumbed to perverse temptations. Don't ever think that you can relax your guard. A number of years ago, there was a terrible scandal involving a rabbi. It happened that it's someone that I know. It's far away from here. And after this scandal, there was a lot of soul searching among rabbis. It's something that, no one would ever think that a rabbi would ever do. It's something that I have never done. I would never think that I could. So I belong to an organization, a professional organization, rabbis, called the RCA, Rabbinical Council of America. It's a wonderful organization. And one of the things that the RCA did in the aftermath of this terrible scandal is that it arranged sessions for members of the RCA. How are we supposed to deal with this? A chaver of mine, a colleague, someone that I knew, someone I thought I respected, did such a terrible, terrible thing. How am I supposed to deal with that? And one of the lessons that I learned, and it's such an important lesson, the first step to trying to ensure that a person does not get involved in a terrible, immoral scandal is to recognize that it could happen to me. I could do such a thing. Thank God I haven't, but I could do such a thing. And therefore, I need to think to myself, what safeguards am I going to take to make sure that I never fall to temptation like that? And I have certain safeguards. And it could apply in any area of life. That's the first step to recognize it could happen to me. As outrageous as that sounds or seems or feels, it could happen to me. One of our great sages said, the fact that you just didn't drink alcohol doesn't make you into a nazir. Ein nazira b'chol makam ela prisha. A nazir is a person who makes a commitment, I'm going to separate myself temporarily from alcohol. It's a conscious decision. I am consciously taking action to create a safeguard for myself that I don't come to a similar kind of immoral fate as what I saw or heard about. And that's the lesson. It applies to every single one of us. When you see something terrible, don't feel smug. Take upon yourself an action. You see or hear of a family that's going through marital problems, something that you never thought would ever happen. Decide on a safeguard. I'm going to decide to spend more time with my spouse. I'm going to work on shalom bayis, even though I may not need to. But I'm going to create a safeguard. Don't think that you are immune, because you're not. And here's the final part of this. I told you that the word nazir means to separate or abstain. Says Rabbeinu Bachaye, one of the classic commentators to the Torah. The word nazir also is connected to the word that means crown. And the message of this mitzvah is that a person who recognizes that there may be a deficiency within themselves and they take steps to safeguard against it, that person is crowned as a role model. That person is elevated in the eyes of their fellow and in the eyes of God. I want to share one more insight tonight. This week's Torah portion, at the end of the Torah portion, describes the gifts that each of the Nesiim brought during the dedication of the Mishkan. So just under a year after the Jewish people left Egypt, they've been working for months and months to build the Mishkan, the sanctuary. Later it became the Beit HaMikdash in Jerusalem. But they inaugurated it. And they had 12 days. And on each day, the Nasi of each tribe, the prince, the head of each tribe, 12 tribes, each tribe had a Nasi, a head, a prince. And on each day, the Nasi of a different tribe would bring a gift to be used in the service of the Mishkan, of the sanctuary. What's fascinating is you have 12 princes. They're each bringing gifts, and each one is identical. It's a certain number of wagons and utensils and animals. It's a list of things. And each one brings the exact same gift. Can you imagine? You had a birthday party, and you have 20 people show up, and everybody brings the exact same gift. Okay, but here's the point. Okay, I mean, for the Mishkan, they could use this stuff. It's not like, what am I going to do with 20 sweaters that are all the same color? These were utensils that could be used. But the strange thing is that the Torah details every single one. It is one of the longest Torah passages in the entire Torah, and it's, to use today's terminology, it's copy-paste. It's exactly the same. And the strange thing is, why not just write the first one, and this is the gift he brought, and then one more pasuk, and every other Nasi brought the same thing. And I want to tell you something. This Shabbos, if you come to shul and you're listening to the Torah reading, I promise you're going to ask yourself this question, because it just goes on and on and on. Why do we have to keep repeating everything when we know it's the same? Okay, this is a classic question. I've given answers to this before. There are a number of answers, but I want to share a new answer. This is an answer given by the Chafetz Chaim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan of Radin. He says that the Nesiim each brought the same gift because they decided in advance that they would all bring the same gift. And they decided in advance that they would all bring the same gift, so there would be no jealousy between one and another. One person would say, oh, my tribe brought the nicest present, your tribe bought a cheapo present. Like, remember what happened with Cain and Abel, Cain and Hevel. They both brought an offering to God. And one brought one offering and the other brought another offering, and they were jealous of each other. Mine is better, no, mine is better. So to avoid that, the Nesiim decided all of us were going to bring the same thing. And the point is that God was so happy with this attitude to remove jealousy that God told Moshe, I want you to write down the exact same details for every Nasi, for every prince. Write it all down, every one of them. Because every one of their gifts was like a jewel, something that was cherished by God, because they did it in a way to not cause jealousy. Now, obviously, there is room for individuality in the way we observe Judaism. A person's allowed to pick out an esrog that's particularly attracted to them. A person can have a nice Kiddush cup. We don't say that everyone has to be exactly the same in everything. But there's got to be a balance. There has to be a balance. When it comes to private practice, You choose your Kiddush cup, I'll choose my Kiddush cup. It's fine. We don't have to have the same. I like mine better, you like yours better, or maybe I like yours better, you like mine better. It's okay. It's all right. But when it comes to acting as a community, that's when we have to balance and to say, is it worth it for me to stick out in a public communal setting when it may cause envy or jealousy from somebody else? So we balance these two. And we try to remember that personal initiative, self-expression, these are important values in serving God. But sometimes the way that we serve God, especially when it's in public, is not by promoting myself, not standing out that I'm different than everyone else, but rather by uniting together with all of Klal Yisrael, that we should all be the same in certain ways. And when we do that, we strengthen our connection to God, and we cause ourselves to be even more worthy of God's blessing. My friends, I want to wish you a beautiful evening and a great Shabbos. And I look forward to seeing you again soon in person. And to you on Zoom, I look forward to seeing you soon in person.